Russia was the Union of Soviet Social Republics. And they'd say, oh, but aren't you so glad that you're in America? I said, well, I know a lot of Russian filmmakers, and they have a lot more freedom than I have. All they have to do is be careful about criticizing the government.
Good afternoon to some, good evening to others. My name is Jason Miles, and welcome to a special edition of Pop Life here on This Is Revolution. We were supposed to start at 3 o'clock. We had some issues with our guests. We're going to be doing things very differently. I wanted to make sure we did this show. I've been trying to get this person on. If you guys watched the live book launch that I did in the San Francisco Bay Area where I'm from, this gentleman, Chris Kontos, was a part of that live panel. He's been a very important part of my musical career, as well as he was, pretty much someone to talk to. A bit of I don't know if he would admit to being this for me, but a bit of a mentor of sorts. As I was trying to figure it out, I guess I'm still trying to figure it out in the music world. But this is an era that he was definitely a part of. And we're also going to talk a little bit of 1994, as he was originally supposed to be on the 1994 shows. That was when he had his debut as the drummer of Machine Head, and their first record dropped. But today we're going to look at thrash metal in the year of 1990 or 1986. Welcome to today's episode, where we will dive into the explosive year 1986, a year many consider to be the greatest in the history of thrash metal. We'll explore the rise of the big four of thrash, the decline of punk, also as well as hardcore starting to morph into crossover as the dominant subgenre for disaffected youth, and how metal, especially thrash metal, began to roar into the mainstream. This was a year when Metallica gained significant exposure by touring with Ozzy Osbourne, and just a year after, Motley Crue catapulted into the record-selling stratosphere, doing the same thing, right? Opening for Ozzy. The new wave of British heavy metal had established itself, transitioning from the new phenomenon to a major force in the arena circuit in the US and beyond. 1986 saw the release of Metallica's seminal album, Master of Puppets, which is often hailed as one of the greatest metal albums of all time. The album's complex compositions, aggressive sound, and critical lyrics elevated thrash metal to new artistic heights. How did Master of Puppets influence the thrash metal genre and its acceptance into the mainstream? Metallica's tour with Ozzy Osbourne in 86 was a pivotal moment for the band, exposing them to a broader audience. How did this tour help Metallica and thrash metal gain mainstream recognition? Megadeth released their influential album Peace Sells, but Who's Buying? Maybe one of my favorite records by them. In 1986, the album's politically charged lyrics and technical prowess set it apart. How did Megadeth contribute to the evolution of thrash metal with this release? Slayer's Rain and Blood also debuted in 86, known for its brutal speed, intensity, and dark themes. Produced by Rick Rubin, the album pushed the boundaries of thrash metal. What was the significance of Rain and Blood in establishing Slayer's reputation in the metal community? How did the album's controversial themes and aggressive style influence the thrash metal genre going beyond? Anthrax released Spreading the Disease in late 85 and followed it up with Among the Living. Actually, that comes out in early 87. Although slightly outside of 1986, these albums were critical in shaping their influence in the thrash scene. What role did Anthrax play in the diversification and popularization of thrash metal? To discuss all this, I have my very good friend and, like I said, mentor. Please give it up for drummer extraordinaire, currently drumming in Forbidden right now. Please welcome Chris Kontos. What's going on, man? How are you?
Oh, what's happening, man? That was crazy little technical difficulties we had there, but yeah, man, I couldn't get my microphone to work, and so here we are on the phone, like we usually chop it up.
Exactly. So it's all normal. It's all good. I can hear you. Everyone else can hear you.
Great.
Chris, 1986.
Woo!
How old are you in 86, and what are you doing in 86?
86, I believe I am just turning 18 years old. I'm releasing my very first album, America Paranoia, with my band Attitude Adjustment. I am frequenting punk, hardcore, and metal shows. I've always considered myself a crossover kid, being that I'm an all music kind of person. So I was brought up on all genres of music, and just the scene, the vibe, the culture really spoke to me around 83, 84, 85. I really sunk my teeth into punk and hardcore and metal. Was really speaking to me at that time, so I went all in. I've been playing drums since I was about 8 years old, so the whole thing kind of just really sucked me in, and that's kind of what's going on right there in 86.
Do you talk about being part of the punk scene?
Yeah.
For me in 86, we're looking at punk kind of its popularity to a certain extent, right? There's always going to be kids that listen to the Ramones for the first time that want to spike their hair and want to be edgy. But what's the dominant edgy music at the time is this newfangled thrash metal.
Right.
For you, why do you think thrash metal gained more popularity? Because it's an underground thing, right? You guys are doing this. Do you even have a name for it when these bands are starting? Because you're there when bands like Testament and Exodus and Metallica and Megadeth's coming by with Kerry King. Like, you're there for all that.
Right. Right.
What are you guys calling it at that time?
Well, the whole genre thing, is almost in hindsight of it happening. It's one of those situations where you don't know it's happening as it's happening.
Yeah.
Right. So it at that point didn't really have a name. These names kind of come a little bit later. Now, what I feel about you were saying the waning popularity of punk rock. So if we take punk rock and we apply it to the Dead Boys and the Ramones and, that the whole CBGB's moment and the whole British moment with, Sex Pistols and stuff and, proper punk rock. And then you kind of Americanize it, and, the talent pool was rapid, like Chrissy Hines said, the better musician you are, the less punk rock you can possibly be. Right? Because you go from knowing 3-chord pile up, and then the next thing you know, you're getting into scales, and you're becoming more a learned musician. So therefore, just the theory of music has to be shitty to be great starts to kind of fade.
Okay.
Right. So what happens is you end up with punk bands becoming better musicians. And then what you have mostly kind of kicked off here in the Bay Area, it's happening on the East Coast too. But what you have is you have a lot of metal bands that, admittedly, at that time, maybe had a kind of silly fantasy, satanic wizards and dragons kind of, lyrical content, right?
Yeah.
And then these bands start getting turned on to GBH, onto, Agnostic Front, and, more bands that are singing about street level shit, about politics, a political wave. So what you see is you start to see these metal bands starting to realize that they can open up the book a little bit here lyrically, starting to sing more about the human condition, or more about authoritarian subject matter, about war, about politics, about the powers that be. All of a sudden, the man is out to get you is starting to be accepted in the metal world. So you end up getting this thrash thing going on, where metalheads are going to see these punk bands and hardcore bands, and punk people are starting to go see Exodus and Death Angel and Sacrilege BC, and and this whole thing kind of collides, where we all kind of realized, hey, who's this long hair at our show, or who's this freak punk rocker with the mohawk at our show? Are we really going to diminish the entire musical thing over haircuts? And it just washed away. And the next thing you start to see Metallica in a Discharge t-shirt, or somebody in a Misfits t-shirt, or you start to see, punk rockers in Merciful Fate, or Celtic Frost, or Voivod t-shirts. And, I never really limited myself to any one genre. If it's kick-ass and it speaks to me and it moves me, then it's all good. And that even goes into hair bands for me.
Really?
And oh yeah, glam bands. I'm a Kiss, Alice Cooper. I'm a corpse paint freak. Going all the way back to Arthur Brown.
Okay.
Alice Cooper and all that. So, like I said, I'm wide open to music. If it speaks to me, Motley Crue, to Cinderella. I heard the musicianship in these bands. I heard the songwriting and stuff, and being into all kinds of classic rock, and that music spoke to me too. It didn't all have, my music didn't have to be coupled with slamming the door in Dad's face because I got to be home at 11 o'clock at night.
Now, now to that point, it's kind of known. Well, look, I did not know Paul Bailoff in real life. I think I crossed paths with him one time in Concord,
right?
Years ago. I don't even think Exodus was doing anything at this time. But I want to say it was at a Planting Seed show. Do you remember that band?
Okay. Oh yeah, I know all those guys.
I think Jack played in Planting Seeds, right?
Yeah, I know all those Concord cats.
Yeah. So I didn't really know Bailoff, but I know the reputation of back in the day. Go get the posers, go get those Motley Crue hair posers. Was that really the attitude of everybody? Because when I look at the pictures of the early iteration of these guys, like maybe 82, 83, they are wearing the skin tight pants, and they kind of look more like, I would even say, maybe like early Maiden.
Right. With the the royal blue spandex, but they're not like pull on bikers, but they're like cut like jeans, but they're spandex.
Yes,
they got pockets and zippers, right? And yes, that's bred down from, we've heard the interviews and stuff about how all the punk labels approached Iron Maiden back in the day. And said a couple, just because Paul Di'Anno kind of looked like that. And I've always felt that there's a lot of rhythmical and even a lot of chord progressions in early Iron Maiden that are very kind of oi based, very Sham 69. And you can hear some of that going on. And the punk labels did approach Iron Maiden back then, and you've even got a couple members in the leopard skin vest that Sid Vicious was wearing. So these looks were kind of colliding, and yes, dude. I mean, there's a kind of coming off what people would consider poser in the dress still of the bands that are saying kill posers. So I think that whole kill posers thing, it kind of it was a little, it was the metal scene being protective. You don't fit in was still a kind of thing going on. Punk rock was a little bit far more accepting to everybody's thing, punk rock comes through an androgyny. It kind of comes through a lot of gay clubs and stuff, letting punk bands play those venues, which you didn't really have as much in metal in its growth. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there was a level of that going on. No one ever tried to pull a Motley Crue t-shirt off at me. You feel me? I mean, yeah. Chuck Billy comes from this era of, damn near poser, mm-hmm. In his early bands. And people would be like, yeah, kill posers. It's freaky poser of glam rock. Oh, hey, Chuck. Hey, buddy. And he's walking up with a white streak behind his ear and his long hair with a bleach streak behind his ear and pink spandex and boots. And this was a group of guys called the Dublin Death Squad. And they were kind of like what people have heard Pantera kind of looks like. It's a steroid version of Van Halen, Judas Priest, and that was still happening in the Bay Area. Nobody was fucking with them because they were all over 6'5", 6'6", 240-pound motherfuckers squeezed into tight clothes. So that kind of died pretty quick. The whole kill posers thing. Yeah. I think it was a bravado and a protective kind of thing. Like, yeah, we're over here doing this. You go down to Sunset Strip if you want to do that. And there was still a very strong kind of glam rock, sleaze rock kind of thing going on at the Omni and stuff, where that scene was still, Vane and Babylon AD and, Mad Anthony. You still had these, curly permed haired kind of guys playing the same venues we were playing. And Laws Rocket was still dressing up.
Really? Were they more of a glam band when they started?
Well, it's that souped up glam, though. It's bred down from Maiden, Priest, Van Halen. You feel me? It's a little bit like like I said, people see what Pantera kind of looked at. They were still tough guys. They were still, they weren't wafy, skinny. These were the dudes. These were dudes kind of still looking like that.
Well, let me ask you this about that scene, because there is years for glam where I think it does kind of break through and becomes its own thing. And I think all these monikers we put on stuff have, not all, but a lot of them have more to do with visual aesthetics opposed to sonic quality, right? Because glam can be all over the board. To your point about bands like Cinderella, I think when you listen to bands like Cinderella or even LA Guns, who for some reason gets lumped into the glam stuff, and I don't know why. That's more to me hard rock, blues influenced rock and roll with a lot more distortion. And they're using the instruments of the era, kind of like you can put a Toto record in from 79 or whenever Georgie Porgy comes out, which is one of I dig that tune, and it's definitely going to sound different than the 80s Toto, but a lot of that 80s Toto has a lot more to do with like everybody needs a gated snare, and this is what studios sound like in 1982 and 84. And I think some of that music does suffer from that, but do you think that what we call glam doesn't really blow up until 87, 88, or were you seeing it blow up in 86?
Well, see, for me, glam is already kind of dead by then.
Okay.
Because I'm looking at glam in my eyes. You got to remember, I saw Led Zeppelin in 77. I saw The Who in 73. My mom took me to all kinds of stuff, right? So if we're talking glam to me, we're talking T-Rex.
Gotcha.
We're talking New York Dolls.
Gotcha.
We're talking Hanoi Rocks. We're talking, even Aerosmith. You know, we're talking that's a different era for me. What I think happened is a lot of these bands came out, and they came out under record labels who had A&R guys who have now become record execs, who are seeing and hearing these sounds come out of these bands, and they're hearkening them to the bands I just mentioned, right? So a lot of these bands didn't even really look like what we saw them portrayed as on MTV when they got their big breaks, because a lot of these bands had clothing racks pushed up to them. You know, if you talk to Motley Crue about, you know, how they kind of had the script flipped on them when they did the Theater of Pain album. You got to dress this way. We sunk a lot of money into you, kind of stuff. That's when you had that real record label oppressive on top of you. We just gave you a lot of money. Put these on. You know, here's your hairdresser. You know, because if you look at early Motley Crue, there's some kind of like an Asian superhero thing going on with their clothing.
Yeah.
It's not all lacy and it's duct tape on the legs, tore up, weird thing on the shoulder. It's far more aggressive than what it becomes like in the Theater of Pain era.
Yes. And,
you know, my old band, The Servants, when I put together kind of a classic rock band during that era of nu metal, rap metal kind of vibe, I had a band that was like juxtaposed to that. And we got to open up for all the hair bands coming through. This is like 2000 through 2004. We opened up for all of them. Faster Pussycat, LA Guns, Slash's Snake Pit.
Oh, no shit.
Oh, yeah, Cinderella. They all came through the Pound.
Oh, and, the Pound. Okay, legendary.
Pound SF, right?
Yes.
And so we got to play with all those hair bands. And you know I'm a conversation person. I'll go right in on it. So talking to Cinderella, I got that same feedback. They were like, we didn't want to look like that. They were tight jeans and leather, you know, vests and kind of closer to what an Aerosmith or a Joe Perry. They're from Philly.
Yeah.
You know, they're Philly guys, you know, but you know, look, once you sign them big contracts, when you take that blockbuster money, there's going to be producers pushed at you, clothing racks pushed at you. And that whole MTV moment starts to speak louder than the bands can defend themselves, you know? So with the whole, what people consider glam and the whole decline of Western civilization part 2 kind of portrays is kind of a mutated regurgitation of what I consider 70s glam. You know?
I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah. You talk to Tracy Guns, dude, he's a dude. He's just a fucking dude. He ain't no wafy, you know, tripper, you know, Brent Muscat, you know, from those guys. They're all cool ass fucking dudes, you know, that would have hung at any metal party here in town or whatever, you know? And that's that kind of indefensible, you know, kind of stuff that I never really got into tripping on people for what they were into, you know, or what kind of music they were into. And, you know, these little weird battles, you know, it didn't speak to me. It wasn't really part of my energy back then, but it did exist, you know, you know, pulling shirts off of people, you know, Paul Bailoff with all those, people see that thing on his wrist, all those hanging little pieces of cloth, thinking they're friendship bracelets and stuff. No, those were scraps of t-shirts that he had ripped off of people.
Jesus.
You know?
Yeah, that's a real thing. Jesus Christ.
That's some battle shit. That's some warrior stuff, you know?
And Zetro was kind of the opposite of that?
Zetro, well, just Paul is, I think everybody's opposite of what Paul Bailoff was. He's an absolute mutation, not made for reproduction. I mean, there's nothing like a Paul Bailoff. Paul was absolutely unique, in his fire and his veracity and his ability to get your goat and cause a reaction and get a reaction. Yeah, that's some magic right there. Paul was some absolute magic, you know. And then you have that other additive, you know, which affects the whole scene, which is, you know, in hindsight, after I really watched the documentary Murder in the Front Row.
Yeah, I really like
that. After the book came out.
Yeah.
Boy, it's Kirk Hammett's world. I mean, yeah. Kurt shows Gary Holt how to chord a guitar, how to hold his pick. He finds Paul Bailoff. He finds and snatches Cliff Burton. And Cliff Burton's an absolute musical genius. And he comes into Metallica and takes them away from a kind of Americanized new wave of British heavy metal vibe. I mean, like the first time I heard Hit the Lights, the demo version of Hit the Lights by Metallica, no life to leather, we're going to kick some ass tonight, yeah. Right? It wasn't hitting me.
Yeah.
I was like, this is some LA shit. You know, it was all it was like kind of, I wasn't feeling it. But by the time Cliff gets in the band and they get this Beethoven and Bach and Mozart composition and this songwriting thing that Cliff hits them to, that's when they really come into form. And that's a Bay Area thing. That's him. That's him telling them, no, I'm not moving to LA. You move up here.
Which I still think is like so dope. Like you guys come down here.
Super dope.
Meet me where I'm at and live in El Cerrito because this is where it's chill and fun and FLA, which, you know, has been my attitude for the last 46 years.
For sure.
But all jokes aside, that album drops in 1986, Master of Puppets. For a lot of people, it's the best thrash album of all time. I do have to say, you know, and it's no shade to Metallica, as you know, we've talked for years. I am a huge fan. That music is on all the music you're talking about is on my DNA, right? I just think, you know, if we're going to talk 86, for me, Rust or Peace Cells that's the record that made me want to go grab a guitar instantly. But Metallica gets into the stratosphere commercially with Master of Puppets. How does that record hit the scene following Ride the Lightning and all the other stuff that's coming out around the same time? Because 84, 85, a lot of people are getting their deals, maybe not all with Elektra, but they are getting videos. They're getting their music out. They're starting to tour. How does everybody respond to something like Master of Puppets?
Well, I mean, dude, it was blockbuster. We all saw the rising of Metallica was undeniable, and you started to see everybody looking at that as the past. You know, for me, you know, all-time greatest thrash album of all times is Bonded by Blood.
Okay.
You know.
Yes.
And even the songs that Kurt took from Exodus and brought to Metallica, the riffs or songs, are some of my favorite early Metallica songs. For me, it was all about Exodus. But, you know, everybody just was in awe, not only in awe of Metallica, but actually tripped out that Ozzy gave them such a platform. I mean, you got to remember they were given their entire stage production on that Ozzy tour,
which is
all the crosses, the backdrop, and everything. Back in the day, opening bands playing, they got 2 feet of space on the stage, no backdrop, and 6 lights.
I was gonna say that's a big thing people don't understand about when you're opening, even on an arena tour. You play in front of the headliners' stuff, their staging,
right?
And if you watch the footage of that 86 tour, even opening for Ozzy, you see all the crosses from Master of Puppets, and they got to have a full stage. That also means that
three steps up back to the drums,
hey,
across
Chris,
the whole stage.
How much tour support were they getting back then, though?
Right. Exactly. I mean, they were in it. They were at that point, they owed a lot of money.
Yes.
And you got Kiss doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Kiss was never afraid of any band. So they gave Anthrax the same platform with I'm gonna skip on the name of the record right here. With all the yellow and red circles.
You State of Euphoria. State of Euphoria.
State of Euphoria tour. They had the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
The little ugly man face with the mustache and all the red and yellow swirls and steps up back behind the drums. Kiss was like, do your thing. There's a few bands. Now you got Van Halen going out on the road with the Velcros. 3 dudes in orange jumpsuits getting booed off the stage. Van Halen was notorious for bringing out crap. So they were still booing them by the time Van Halen got on stage. You had bands after, like Led Zeppelin, who went out with really poor bands after they took out Vanilla Fudge.
Mm-hmm.
And Vanilla Fudge whooped their ass and they cut their set.
Damn.
People were throwing chairs and going off, and they were like, get them off the stage now.
Damn.
So some bands just don't have that fear of the opener. So I got to give, Kiss and Ozzy a lot of credit for doing that for Metallica, because that was something that made all of us go, wow. And you got to remember, dude, Metallica doesn't make a video till 1.
Yeah.
Right. So until 1 comes out, they really weren't being pushed on MTV or anything. This was, you had to go see and experience Metallica live.
And they weren't getting radio airplay either.
No. It's what was the BAM magazine? I think on the cover of Metallica it said Top 40 Radio Won't Touch.
Yeah, I remember that. I totally remember that BAM magazine. Yeah.
Right. So that was a thing, and that definitely bolstered all of us here in the scene. Like, this is some hidden shit here, and people are not finding it. People are digging for this, and then you've got the growth of Metal Blade and Combat and Roadrunner, these record labels that are dedicated to this genre and this movement, and then I think the whole time what's growing underneath that is bands like Agnostic Front with the Cause for Alarm album and Cro-Mags, Age of Quarrel. You start to see this growth of punk bands and hardcore bands bringing on more of a metallic sound. Crumbsuckers,
Do you think that change in sound, because punk is kind of sonically across the board, right? If you look at those hardcore bands from the early 80s, from Southern California, Fear, The Germs, Black Flag, and even going up north to where we're from with the Dead Kennedys, there's not a lot of sonic similarities. It could be because of access to equipment. There is no equipment that's going to be the definitive sound of punk, right? Some punk is kind of jangly.
Clean tones,
right? Because they don't, there's just, again, access to stuff, ability to play stuff, knowing how to use your stuff. And the era that you're talking about, that sound that we know with thrash, which is a little different to me from the glam metal stuff, because again, those guys are influenced by the Stones, and they're playing Aerosmith rocks over and over again, which again, these are not albums I'm trying to diss, but I hear that more in that music than I do in the veracity and the speed and the intensity of thrash. And I feel like, and you can answer this, by the time these seminal records come out for the guys, maybe there's a big 8 because I think there's people that still, again, you go out with them and you know these people personally. You have Metallica, Anthrax, Megadeth, Slayer, of course, but you also have Exodus, you have Testament. I would throw Overkill in. Would you throw Overkill in?
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. Death Angel,
Sepultura is doing. They're playing at Mach 1. Morbid Visions. I don't know if they get a chance to come up to the States in 86 or 87. Suicidal Tendencies has taken on.
Right.
They're punkish, but they still have that crunchy sound that I feel
right.
like
When they get Rocky George, they get Rocky George on guitar, and they get Robert Trujillo on bass, and then we got guys with Marshalls with rack gear.
You definitely can hear the rack gear,
yeah. And you're starting to get processed tones and processed drum sounds, and the production level goes up. Some of those stronger punk bands from the UK, I don't think they had it the same way over there as we did. They could do legitimate recording sessions, recorded, the same way a Motorhead would be recorded. Multiple tracks, better studios. It seemed like punk and hardcore over here was your buddy who does assistant engineer work, who could let you in the middle of the night and tape over some old tape. And get 13 songs done in 5 hours, and we'll mix it in a couple weeks. You hear some of the bands talking about how they got that buddy deal to record their first albums, where it was like on the slide, on the slip, get in here real quick, and maybe not a producer or somebody who really, really knows what they're doing, but just capturing raw tones, all live in the room, together. No ISO booths, nothing like that, So you get more of a rough sound.
Is that how you record your first Attitude Adjustment record?
Actually, we recorded with Peter Miller, who's an old rockabilly kind of guy in San Francisco. And so that first record was actually recorded, but it was recorded quick. We had small budget from Pussmort Records. Pusshead signed us. It's one of his earlier releases. So we did go in, record. The guitars were in an ISO room. The bass was in an ISO, but they were in the room with me playing drums, and then we overdubbed the vocals and did overdub solos. So we're getting into a little bit more of a proper recording session there.
And how long did it take you guys to do that record?
Oh man, we did all the drums in one day, did overdubs the next day, and started mixing.
So you didn't sleep?
Oh no, man, there was no sleep back then. We were all on meth.
Well, I appreciate the honesty. I wasn't going to go that route, but I appreciate the honesty.
I mean, look, there are people who drank, there are people who did meth, there are people who smoked a lot of weed and did meth and just stuff like that. But meth drove a lot of the technique, the speed, the technicality. We were just fortunate that we were doing meth, but we would go burn it all out. 2-day sessions at the studio or at rehearsal and stuff. We were grinding it into our music. We weren't sitting at home tearing apart cars and VCRs and refrigerators and tweaking. We actually had a drive and a focus to take the drugs and put them into our music. But look, you hear Bill Hicks, classic, right? If you think drugs are a bad thing, if you think drugs are evil and destructive, then go home and take all your records and throw them away. Because everybody that was recording those albums that you love and that you revere were on a lot of drugs. So I talk to bands these days, like, man, we can't get that feeling in the studio. It's just, what is it, And it's like, well, because you're not on a lot of cocaine and your arm hair isn't standing up about your own shit. You're not having those moments, those, oh my God moments, hella high.
Yeah.
And putting that creativity of being hella high into your music and your mix and your sound. You know, in bands these days, they rehearse what, 2-3 times a week? They got 2 people that got to be up in the band at 5 in the morning because they're really plumbers and drywallers. So they're looking at the clock at the 3-hour mark because they're about to turn into a pumpkin because they know they got to get up at 4:30 a.m. And so these bands end up putting in a colossal 9-12 hours a week into their craft. Man, we used to have 12-hour rehearsals 5 days a week, 4 days a week.
You know, it's fun. You know, living at Soundwave where we met, there's still bands, a few of them doing some 12-hour rehearsals. There's still a handful.
But is that a bad thing? You know what I mean? Focus on your craft. Be a pirate. You know, sometimes I tell people being in a band is, you know, at some point kind of needs to be a life and relationship and responsibility risk, or if not an absolute toss away. You know, some of these legends and all these people we worship spent ungodly amounts of time living together on pizza boxes and dressing in their girlfriends and groupies' clothing to be Aerosmith.
Yeah.
To be these big bands that everybody talks about wanting to be like. And they don't fully commit, you know? I tell people you can't be look, the rock and, especially the difference between a musician and an entertainer. 2 different worlds, bro, in my opinion. 2 completely different worlds. They can collide, but being an entertainer who puts out albums, who wants to push t-shirts and tour, you can't do it on vacation time.
Ooh.
You can't, I got 12 days a year I can go on tour. That doesn't work.
It doesn't.
I've been in a bunch of bands where I've put in a colossal amount of time to try to make it happen. And then me and the singer are fully committed. And we're like, we just got offered 25 days. And the dude that works at EA Sports doing backgrounds for NASCAR 3 can't leave that job. That dude has a real job. And it's like, well, then why are we down here spending $750 a month on this room, rehearsing 5 nights a week to get this music recorded and done, if you can't even leave for more than 15 days of vacation time a year? You're not a real one. You're not a pirate. You've got to be able to get on the boat, get on the bus, and go and leave everything behind. You know, it's a commitment. You know, I think given the little IKEA manual to build a rock band instruction manual, if you actually handed that out, people would not sign up.
Nobody would want to do it because there's something to be said about actually saying, I'm going to spend hundreds of days gone. I think that was one of the reasons why Al let us stay at Soundwave, because I remember we went on a tour and we were cleaning the place first. Right. And we just wanted a room. And at the time he was like, oh, we have no rooms. And we came back from a tour and he goes, you guys are really gone for 4 months. We're like, we're gone for 4 months. Yeah. I think we came back from the UK. And he was like, you guys are really about it. And there's other people in the studio that think you guys are really about it. So you can have this room. And that's when we moved into the back.
Well, that's why we call Al St. Al.
Yeah.
Because he gave us all the facility to create our music in between record advances or tour supports or tours. And that's why people got 5 and 6 months behind in rent with Al. And Al would let it slide because he could see you working towards it. You know? Tony starting up there.
Yep.
Digital Underground starting up there. We're talking way before any hits, you know, but he could see a real one. And he's always been able to do that. And have people taken advantage of that over time? Sure. Have a lot of people been able to advance and move forward with their careers and become somebody worthy of having their spot in that hallway? next to Primus and Metallica and Faith No More and In Vogue and MC Hammer and Testament, all those bands. Yeah, he's a real one. You know, there's this symbiotic relationship that goes on between everybody in the industry, and you need people on all levels, not just the musicians, but you need people like Al. Something that's gone away, is the club owner icon, Dirk Dirksen types, who Bill Graham types. Now we got a bunch of people booking bands, and the clubs don't even have an office, where they book bands all day. The Stone, the Omni, the Keystone, they had 4 people up in the office booking all day.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That was like a hustle bustle. You'd go there to get your tickets for a show, and there'd be people on the phones and chopping it up. And you hear somebody like, well, okay, well, we got Johnny Winter coming in next week. And then after that, we got, Guns N' Roses coming in. And then we've got the Jerry Garcia band. But everything came through the Stone.
Mm-hmm.
And they were giving us our opportunity to come in there on certain nights and play our crazy music. That's a thing of the past. We don't really have that anymore. We got private contractor booking agents in the Bay Area and all over the place that bring packages to clubs that have the lights off until you offer them a show. The Omni had California music downstairs in the basement, working on booking that place.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Paul Stanley's solo tour there. I saw Alice in Chains there for the first time. Black Crowes, Motorhead, like they were on a grind. So much has changed in the industry of how it runs and how it works that people have a distorted vision of how the path goes now, because so much has changed, but so much of the dream still exists based on how it used to be. So people get a little baffled when they get in it and they realize that a lot of this stuff ain't there anymore.
Yeah, that's why for me, I do have a love-hate relationship with my time at Soundwave. I will say Cindy and I's posters on the wall is it feels good, right? To, like you said, be next to you and all the other people I grew up listening to. I've said it before on this show. One of the coolest things that had ever happened while I was there, I was coming home from working some festival, and I walked in. This is after Cindy had left, and I walked in through the stage room, and you guys were getting ready for some benefit for some. Oh, I think it was when Sean Killian. I think you guys did a benefit for
the Killian on Command.
Yeah, and everybody was in the stage room, and
right.
I didn't know that was going on, right? And I opened the door, and everybody's in there like, "Hey, what's up, Jay? What's up, Jay? What's up, Jay?" I was like, holy shit.
Right.
The 80s thrash scene is right outside my door right now.
Right. Coming together for one of our own. Right.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the camaraderie of that scene, because I was always taken aback by how close you guys all were. I mentioned this on the book launch thing, but I thought that was cool because I felt like a recipient of that as well, because you took it upon yourself to help me and Cindy throw a show.
Right. Well, it's that I think all of us came up in a time at Ruthie's and Stone where we all played shows together, and it wasn't like one band would be like, oh, we got to headline this show and put a bunch of busters on the bill that won't expect to get paid. Right. And then a big headliner would come, and we would all get on that show, but the big headliner from wherever would come, and they'd take all the money.
Mm-hmm.
We played Monday through Sunday shows. We played, people got to remember that a lot of the stuff that went down at Ruthie's Inn was midweek.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of times it was. Sure, there would be bigger shows with some of the bigger marked bands, but if we're talking like Corrupted Morals with Fuhrer and Contempt and Stone Vengeance and Attitude Adjustment, that's a Wednesday gig.
Damn.
That's a Thursday gig. Because Wes was opening that place up to us to be this proving ground, to be this, Mach 1 level honeycomb hideout where we could all be and hone our craft and hone our skills. And it was a make or break kind of scene, if you sucked back then, you sucked. and people would let you know that it was in that you had bands that either disappeared from it because they got spit on or booed or coins thrown at them or TP'd while they were playing. People go right in the bathroom and get the toilet paper and start TPing a band. You suck. And then if that band went and woodshedded and addressed why they suck and brought some value back, then they would get the respect. A lot of people would disappear. You don't have that now. Everybody gets it because we're in that new era of trophy mentality where last place gets a trophy. If Attitude Adjustment opened up for the Circle Jerks took $3,800 and we got the flyer. Paper trail night. We used to call those paper trail nights. Well, at least we're on the flyer with GBH. Those were markers back then. That was like, yeah, okay, we're moving up. We're on this flyer with said big band. Now they break down the bill. This band gets $350. This band gets $170. This band gets $120. This band, everything's fair, and everybody claps. That's cool, but in a lot of ways, it's put the bar on the ground, and anybody can step over. And I kind of feel some way about that kind of mentality. I mean, because if you flip it, people are spending their hard-earned entertainment dollar that they go bust ass for to come see something, to come see a show, to be entertained, to be brought out of norm. That's why I didn't like the whole thing that happens in the late 90s into 2000s where clean stage, everybody looks like, Fred Durst. Let's turn the Domino's Pizza Boy delivery guy into a rock star, into an icon. Not buying it. Because I'm coming from a place where I can't tell Gene Simmons apart from Jesus as a kid. Or I don't even know what planet David Bowie comes from. And then he does a movie, The Man Who Fell to Earth. You're like, you goddamn right he did. Right? I'm coming from show. And then you see bands up there just up in some sweats, looking at their feet with an ugly ass guitar too high, with the strap too high. Just, bringing no entertainment value to the stage whatsoever. You don't have to dress up like Kiss, but bring something to the stage.
Now, I do want to ask you, because also part of this show and this talk I got to have with you. Originally, we wanted to have you on for 1994, and that's the year that Machine Head drops their first record. And I've had some amazing behind the velvet rope, if you will, conversations with you about that first record, that touring cycle, what life was like, that big change. You guys get lumped into the new metal moniker, and we were saying this earlier today on the phone. It felt to me like anyone that had baggy pants on in 94 was going to be new metal. Maybe the only reason why Pantera doesn't get the moniker is because they just dropped earlier. But I think there's massive differences between Machine Head, Limp Bizkit, Deftones, and Incubus.
And Korn and whatever.
And Korn. Sorry, Korn. I can't believe I left out Korn, who actually drops their first record in 94. Now, there's some footage that was going around because it's how many years has it been? It's been 30 years, right? 30 years since that record. And was it 5 years ago you guys got together for the 25th anniversary of Burn My Eyes?
2019 into 20, and then COVID killed it.
And everybody's still walking around. You guys all look to be in good health.
Sure.
Sad I don't know if I was gone, but I definitely didn't get to see when you guys, because that show did play the Bay. Where you played in Oakland, right?
Fox Theater
on that show.
Yeah.
Tell me about what it was like in 94 and the years that led up to that deal, because I remember Machine Head, because it was the dude that left Violence started a band.
Right.
So tell me about that moment, because that's got to be exciting.
It kind of kicks off in 92. Rob writes a batch of songs. He brings them to Violence. It's tuned down. There's a lot of one finger chording going on. And, now we're into the, Black Album mentality, where, we've gone from pictures by the bus or sitting on our gear backstage, grabbing each other's hair, holding out the proverbial grapefruit hand, the Venom thing, that thing. And now, we're out in the desert, black and white, with sunglasses on and stretch jeans with bell bottoms and boots. And there's this serious thing that starts to happen with that. Metallica kind of kicks off with the Black Album.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's Ross Halfin in the, these are looking like Naomi Campbell and Michael Jackson video photo shoots, and all of a sudden it gets real serious and everything. And at the same time, you've got a lot of fucking dirty, gnarly black metal and death metal out of Florida happening at that time. That's still a real punch in the fucking mouth, and not tripping on any kind of aesthetic. A new aesthetic, and so a lot of people want to say, oh, grunge killed everything, oh, grunge killed everything. Well, take a look at 93 to 94 when that supposedly happened. It may have killed hair metal and stuff, but there's still a lot of brutal music coming out.
Well, I love what you had to say, that hair metal was gone before. I think hair metal plays itself out before grunge really blows up, and grunge gets a lot of props. This is what I say. I don't know if you agree with this. Metal, hip hop, new metal, rock writers, there's a pretentiousness with rock writers, we have to admit. And they didn't want to cover that stuff like it was serious, because I think when you hear the word metal, to your point, there is some silly wizards, demons, and dragons shit going on.
Right.
And the thrash stuff, I think it was too stoner airheads for them. And when grunge comes along, even though Nirvana is a hardcore punk band,
around Bleach and everything,
their aesthetic visually and the equipment they're playing is very reminiscent of early rock stuff. So finally they have this important music. You're not going to call it punk, you're going to call it grunge. Now it's elevated.
Well, Vogue magazine is going to call it grunge.
Exactly.
You got to remember that nobody in the Seattle scene came up with that.
Not at all. And I don't. I'm just saying that for people listening, because I don't want to get into a long.
No, I hear you, but right. But it's important to note that, like, certain things are cast onto musical genres that are outside of the actual scene or the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Getting into like the new metal thing, right? So where you have this very short amount of time where it was called groove metal.
Yes.
And what happened was that the riffs may have been the same, but the drummers were taking a different approach to the interpretation of the riff.
They drove that music to me. You guys, in my opinion, because as the riffs get simpler the drumming gets more complex and groovy.
Right. Because you have Vinnie Paul, you have Igor Cavalera, you have Danny Schuler, you have, and I'm not tooting the horn, but you throw myself in the mix, where we were striving for something else besides just right.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, what about halftime? What about boom boom bop boom boom bop boom bop boom bop boom? Like there was this whole thing happening, and the guitar players were like, whoa, because maybe their vision was for double bass, snare attack, right, with long sweeping rolls and all this stuff. And it was like, no, what if I played that whole part on the toms, or you get that Sepultura tribal thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're taking their cultural music and their drum world in Brazil and applying that to the drums and to the cadence of that music. So groove metal was one thing. What I think happened was when those drummers and other drummers that were being influenced by that moment then you had singers wanting to rap over it.
Mm-hmm.
And wanting to do that cadence with the vocals. And so that becomes rap metal, and somehow it's bred down from Walk This Way, Run DMC, Aerosmith, Public Enemy and Anthrax linking up, Biohazard and Onyx. You kind of have this moment where everybody's like, this is a cool little thing to do as a collab. And then you get whole bands that are trying to be that. And, look, it's no secret, but rap metal and nu metal died faster than anything.
Well, it feels like the bands that were part of that, they ditch, except for Korn. I gotta give it. I'm not the biggest Korn fan, but I gotta give it to them.
Right.
They wear it almost with honor. It feels like they still do stadiums.
Sure.
So,
they're massive.
It's not hurting, right? But to your point, either people have shed it. Like, I don't know anyone that calls the Deftones a nu metal band.
No.
I don't know anyone that
that's
calls
closer to.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's closer to Bad Brains or something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's like an eye against eye moment as a band.
And you saw them back in the day at the Berkeley Square when they were coming through.
Oh yeah, they used to be like, they were at first. Deftones was kind of like part of that whole reflux that Chili Peppers kicked off with Fungo Mungo and Puzzlefish and Primus and Limbo Maniacs and a lot of these.
Would you throw Faith No More in there too?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. They were part of that craze, and then, like I said, somebody must have heard Eye Against Eye, and Deftones come into their form. Machine Head gave Deftones one of their earlier shows once they had made that kind of flip.
Mm-hmm.
To a little bit more, baggier pants, more socked in grooves, based on like I would, for me, I always thought like, wow, these guys really get that whole Eye Against Eye moment. I think they were just riding on that cusp. And, Machine Head breaks Korn in Europe completely. They had never been heard or played in Europe till we did our Headbangers Ball and had them send us a broadcast ready version of Where's That Blind?
Mm-hmm.
And we put, you can find videos of them talking about how Machine Head broke them. I mean, we were kind of sprung on them because it was like, I've always been into hip hop, deep hip hop fan, and kind of abandoned the whole what I would call punk in a can, or, you know, all of a sudden you could just go buy all these clothes I had to make when I was a kid. And you had to go to, you know, weird leather mongers, you know, bondage places in San Francisco to get studs and find studded belts and to stud up a leather jacket and stuff. It was work. You know, you had to go to like really, you know, hard to find art supply stores to find paint pens to paint logos on your jackets, and, you know, cut up t-shirts to make back patches. And, you know, all of a sudden now you can just get it. So I kind of drifted from that look because I just didn't want to be part of a fabricated uniform. So in that whole machine head, I was already dressing like the fucking Wu-Tang Clan in hockey jerseys and these you know, small boutique hip hop stores, wearing these you know, hip hop clothing, because I was just like, yeah, I'm good. I'm over here on this.
That the Bay had so many of back in the 90s. I missed that.
Oh,
all those
yeah.
bootleg places that had all the like the hip hop kind of, I don't want to say generic, but like random quote unquote hip hop stuff. Now you guys, when you guys hit, you know, you guys do adopt the baggy pants, right? Your lead singer at the time in Machine Head, Rob Flynn, has cornrows.
Right.
Where was that first video shot? Was that Oakland or LA?
That's all in Oakland. The Davidian video, that's all LA and all Oakland and San Francisco.
Okay.
We're on the rooftop. Those shots that are outside where you see the Transamerica building and everything.
Okay.
That's on top of on Broadway, the Rock on Broadway. Historic ass punk club. We climbed out the window onto the small section of rooftop and set up out there to get those shots. And we walk in front of the Oakland is Proud sign, and we're down by the railroad tracks. And, you know, the whole thing was like, you know, street mentality, human condition, fucked up fucking situation financially. You know, we're all drug dealers at that point. We're all living with 6 and 7 fucking roommates, so we can all pay $200 a month in rent, and we can rehearse in that house. You know, we're living in warehouse spaces. You know, back then, loft living wasn't a thing. That was some broke ass shit. You know.
Yes, loft living was not the jam in the 90s.
Dude, it was fucked up. You know, you're some broke ass musicians living in the cannery. You know, I mean, it was, you know, living in West Oakland wasn't some gentrified shit. It's the only place we could afford, you know, and because we engaged the community, because we looked people in their fucking eyes and talked to our bodega fucking guy and talked to people in the store, we were accepted down in those areas. Now people move into West Oakland, they build a 7-foot fence on a house that's never had a fence. They don't make eye contact with anybody. They're from fucking Indiana. They got a tech job. No wonder your $6,000  10-speed got stolen. You know, see people jogging with ear pods in West Oakland by Acorn. I'm like, wow, shit sure has changed.
Shit has hella changed. No, that's real talk.
Sure has fucking changed.
What is the?
You know,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. We just came up in a different environment than I think a lot of people do now. But they want the same effect. They're striving for the same veracity and the same effect. You can't fake environment.
No.
You know, what was charging us back then doesn't exist now to charge said 17-year-old band. You know, now we're 20. You know, Forbidden's making that first album. They're 17, 18 years old. You know, everybody's 23, 24. You know, our brass are all in the 22, 26. We're all 17, 18 underneath them. You know, it's still a young ass movement at that point.
Now, it feels like because you guys start your own thing in the 90s, you don't have the specter of being a part of a thing that might be long in the tooth. So thrash at this point has slowed down. We have to admit that the quote unquote big four, right, have all released at this point extremely commercial acceptable records. Metallica by this time has multiple videos on MTV. Megadeth is doing some verse chorus stuff with Countdown to Extinction and Euthanasia. Anthrax had a big hit with Persistence of Time. Then they actually get rid of their singer. Slayer,
John Bush.
John Bush. Look, I like John Bush, and I like the John
Me
Bush
too.
years.
Love him.
Slayer has commercial success with Seasons in the Abyss. They got MTV success. I don't think Slayer has slowed down as much. They're kind of metal's AC/DC to me. You're going to get a similar record every time. They're not going to experiment too much. If Slayer experimented with anything, it was 7-string guitars for 5 seconds. But it does open the door, as you said, for these younger people that were part of the tail end maybe of that Bay Area movement. How does, because you guys get some positive feedback, but how does that affect the guys, like you said, that were still a little younger, like the Forbiddens and the Heathens and even the Death Angels, who were a lot younger but had records out during that same time? Didn't Death Angel try to change their name for a second?
Yeah, I did their last tour. They flipped their motorhome, and this was 90. And they had flipped their motorhome, and Andy was severely injured. Mark Ossegata had a massive foot injury, and they basically they had some shows to do in Japan. They were going to lose a ton of money if they did not complete those shows. So I went to Japan with Death Angel, and they called it the Discontinued Tour. And they printed on all of their T-shirts with a red stamp, silkscreen, Discontinued. And they became the organization. And before the last song, every night in Japan, they came out. Myself and Mark would leave the stage, and they would bring out stools, and they would do 3 acoustic versions of this new band, the organization, and announce to the crowd that they were breaking up.
Really?
Oh yeah, awkward as fuck. And they're my boys.
Uncomfortable as shit.
Oh yeah, crying, Japanese girls crying, people fucking whoaing in the crowd, like ooh no. And they're my boys. I went to high school with Rob Cavastani and Mark Ossegata. Mark was my high school president at Clayton Valley High School out in Concord. So I've known them forever, and they made the move out. I mean, they did it kind of early, and then they went on to become Swarm. And Mark came back and sang for Swarm, but then they started getting pressured at those shows because that was like kind of wanting to be in the Jane's Addiction vibe. They had the girls with the dreadlocks and the stripy tights with the untied docks and the top hat with the goggles.
Yeah.
Very
90s.
Yeah. And then you'd have all these meatheads knowing that it's Death Angel, really, screaming out, ultraviolence, boy, board, yelling out all these Death Angel songs. So eventually they started doing these little medleys in the middle. And a pit would break out. And you'd see all these 4 non-blonde girls go flying off to the side, getting the drinks knocked out of their hands, dreadlocks flying, And they finally just said, fucking Uncle, we're Death Angel again. And they've been on a colossal run and put out a savage amount of albums since they got back together. They've had some little member change here and there, but, same as Testament. Testament tried to chase the Black album, and then they kind of folded out of that and went back to their thrash roots, Much like, I call it 50s in the metal right now. There's something going on with metal bands in their 50s. Sepultura. Well, 46 to 50 something. Sepultura, Obituary, all these bands, Voivod, Overkill, all of them who are still kind of playing true to their trade, thrash metal, they're in this daddy mode where it's like they know what they do, they know what they are, they know their lane, they play to their strengths, and it's savage playing these festivals with all these bands recently after getting into Forbidden. Dude, I mean, the benchmark is high. It's high. And it's showing everybody what we all did when we were kids. And I see a lot of bands, dude, that just don't have it. There's something not special about it. It's derivative. It's a little bit karaoke with different lyrics.
It's funny you say that, because I've been disillusioned, right? The mini book I write comes from some of my disillusion and hanging out with people like you and Ted Falcone and all the other Craig, at Soundwave, Tom Hunting, one of the nicest people in metal, by the way. Shout out to Tom.
Ever.
I live here in Mexico now. I live in Baja. Where I live, there is no music scene outside of Mexican bands and maybe the occasional cover band. But in Tijuana, there is a legit metal scene with very young people, and stores and corner shops that sell t-shirts. I'm wearing a Christian Death shirt. Good luck trying to find one in the States. I was able to get this. They had multiple Christian Death shirts and exhumed and all these different bands that we've been talking about this whole time. You get a Forbidden shirt in Mexico, easy peasy, right?
Bootleg as fuck.
Y'all ain't getting none of this money. But I'm also paying $5.
Right. And why fear that?
Feel me?
But I got no problem with it if it's not Chris Brown or a Kardashian up in that shit.
It's cats that want to dig the music. Now dig this. There's a bar. I talk about this bar on the show all the time. It's right in the red light district. It's called the Red Dragon and Dragon Rojo. And there was a death metal show there Sunday. And didn't even know there was a show there. Just kind of went to the bar to go hang out because they'll let me drink. When I walk in, the bartender waitress lady laughs at me. She goes, "You want your waters?" And and you can request music on the video jukebox all day long, all night long. Metal, punk, goth, classic rock, whatever. And it's blaring. You're rocking out. A lot of times people are singing along. People will walk up to you if you got a certain shirt on, like, "Oh shit, you like Band X?" It's like an old school vibe.
Right.
I actually have seen kids throw shows in an alley, Chris. Like if y'all saw some, well, you're going to South America, and you guys have been going to South. I don't know how often you get to kind of walk around, and see the scene and see stuff like that. But it does feel like there is this respect and love for the original stuff, especially the Bay Area stuff.
Oh yeah, dude.
You just went to South America with Forbidden. What was the vibe like? What was the crowd like? Did you get a chance to actually hang with people in the crowd? What was the whole thing like?
Well, my nickname is General Public, right? I'm off stage. I towel off. I dress back into my fucking street clothes, and I'm straight out. So not only watch the other bands from the pit and be up in the crowd, but to engage with my culture, right? Like back in the day when Machine Head kind of gave me that nickname, it was kind of like, oh, Chris needs to be with his people, or Chris needs to go, shine. And for me, it wasn't nothing about that. Because see, I'm still the kid that's doing stage dives. I'm still up front for my favorite bands. I want a drumstick. I want a set list. I'm still that fan. And in that, on tour, my whole career, I've ended up in the right restaurants, in the right record store, at the right castle, standing amongst the right ruins, big ass, bag of weed or a big old ball of hash because I get off the bus and engage with those first fucking 30 kids that are there at 10 a.m. out in front so they could get on the rail. Like, I want to meet people. And that's why I know thousands and thousands and thousands of people around the world out of the 35 countries or whatever I've been in. Like, I know for a fact that if I get caught in the rain and lost my wallet and my passport, I got numbers where and somebody is driving to come pick me up. Like, because I have friends, not fans, you know, and I've always kind of wanted it to be that way, because the metal and punk culture is way more fragile than what people think. So engaging with the kids in Chile, and the guys and gals, and meeting people and bouncing around and meeting tattoo artists and other musicians and other fans of those bands, and getting turned on to other bands and stuff. That's all a major part of the completion of the circle, and culturally for me, it always has been. So, hey, there's a rock mall here in Brazil. What? I come backstage with like info.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you guys know there's a record store right around the corner. The dude's going to stay open 2 more hours. He's closing in an hour usually, but he's going to stay 2 more hours. When we're done, we can go down there. What? It's because I walk around, Like, I'm not trying to eat at what everybody calls the U.S. Embassy, McDonald's on tour.
Gross.
I want to go eat goulash served by monks. I want to go down weird alleys in Japan and walk through curtains and eat in a steam-filled little hole in the wall. Right? I'm not trying to have Arby's, in Japan. So, yeah, I don't play it real safe. I get right in the mix with everybody, and always have. And that's kind of, I see a lot of people miss out on a lot of the tour experience by staying on the bus and playing video games, or hiding backstage, or being homesick. I know the road isn't for everybody. It's extremely hard and taxing, and 8-hour drives for 40-minute sets. Meet and greets and all that stuff that goes with it. It's a long work day. It's a lot. And people have kids, and people have dogs and cats and lifestyles and stuff that they have at home, that people get homesick. But I love it. And I love all the textures that come with it, and it's cool to be out there with so many people that are still doing it, bumping into the same old heads, hanging with Bobby Blitz from Overkill, going to see Merciful Fate the night after Metal Fest in Chile was awesome, because we're already down there. We play a huge festival, 12,000 people in the Movie Star Arena, which is this amazing, huge facility. And, weeks before we head down there, we find out Merciful Fate's headlining the same venue the next night. And we go and hang and chill and kick it with Hank Sherman. And, at the same time, I'm sneaking people backstage that I just met, just to hang, because it's good hangs, I don't know. It's just, it's just part of the thing with, like, I think we're all kind of looking at each other going, wow, we're still in this. We played in Brazil with Death Angel, Exodus, Anthrax. It's like, wow, we're all looking at each other, back, behind these big stages or whatever. And we're like, here we are. Same as it always was, chilling, family vibe. It's got this kind of battle tested, been there, done that kind of thing. Still making people the same age happy, 15 to 30-year-old, people, and then all the people who are older who are there, still there. It refuses to die. The metal thing and the punk thing and the hardcore thing, it absolutely refuses to die. There are countless genres of music that have just kind of fallen off, or maybe still survive on a looky-loo kind of mentality, And there are strong genres of music that are out there that will refuse to die as well. But this is a special thing. You know, we're going to Europe this year in August. We take off on August 5th. And we're playing Brutal Assault in Czech Republic. Massive festival.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're playing Bloodstock in the UK. Another massive metal festival. We're doing a headlining show in Manchester with a young band called Tortured Demon. And then we're doing our all-star band, which is called Bay Area Interthrashional, which celebrates the birth of thrash in the Bay Area. And we did it in 2022 at Dynamo Festival.
Those pictures looked awesome. I think I saw what song did Randy Blythe do with you guys? That's the video I saw.
Fight Fire with Fire.
Yes.
Right? And we play all these songs in E like they were written.
Yeah.
When you got everybody else, including the bands that wrote these songs, have all tuned down. You know, they've all gone the way of tuning the guitars to whatever, way lower.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it's about the singers can't get that register anymore. Some of them are just like, oh, it's so heavy. But we play all we do. The caveat to the band is, excuse me. Caveat to the band is if you're a guest on the thing, it's 25 players, 12 songs or whatever. You can't play a song from a band you've been in. So if you're in Testament, you got to play a Death Angel song. If you're in Death Angel, you got to play a Violence song. If you're in Exodus, you got to play, a Forbidden song. So it mixes the whole thing up, which is really cool. This year we have 20 players. We're just doing Metallica and Exodus. We put a keg on stage, so all the players and guests and friends can just walk out and pour a beer while we're playing.
Mm-hmm.
We've got people from Flotsam and Jetsam.
Oh, wow.
Left to Die, which is the Death tribute band with some original members of Death in that tribute. We got people from Death Angel, Forbidden. We got Nick Barker, who's been in all kinds of bands on drums. Hopefully, got my fingers crossed, we're going to get Becky Baldwin, who's the new guitar bass player for Merciful Fate.
Oh, the new one.
Yeah, she's fucking super cool. So, and we bring Harold O with us. Harold plays bass on some tracks. We got Dan Decay from Exciter. So I think we have like 20 players this year. And like I said, we play the songs in E, and it just stands out.
Mm-hmm.
When these songs are presented the way they were written, and you've listened to a whole day of bands that are tuned down, some of them 8-string guitars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just,
mm-hmm.
And then this annoying, agitated A string. It happens. The crowd, we've seen it when we did it here. We did it at the Great American Music Hall. Now that was 40 players, 38 songs over 4 hours.
Damn.
You could see it. People were like, what's happening to me? And it's that agitated, original heavy.
Mm-hmm.
That original heavy. And it's a cool ass fucking thing to do. It's super fun. People love it. And it's a way to, to honor Cliff Burton and Paul Bailoff and countless others that have passed away and people who are maybe phased out, and so it's a trip, man. It is a trip being this age. I mean, I just turned 56 and I'm still doing 18-year-old shit. Live fast, die young turned out to be a really cruel joke. When you're this age, you're like, what happened to that 27 thing where, I wasn't going to live past 27, Then I set a new number, 32. That's how long John Bonham lived. 32. I know I'm going to be dead by then. And then, whoops, here we are.
Here we are.
And there ain't no fucking money in it. Bands are lucky to get $10,000 to record an album these days. Machine Head got $375,000 to record Burn My Eyes.
Damn.
Shit has changed, and a lot of it firmly lies at the feet of the customer. with this golden ticket that they call their device. You know, downloading, streaming, convenience, too much accessibility, too many bands that does not make it special anymore.
The relationship changed between people and music, I think.
Oh, big time.
And that's why the live show is still something that's really important. And the sad thing to me about the live show is we're seeing the live show almost go the way of the dodo, in the sense of it's just so expensive. I was saying this on the show the other night. You know, I sadly, and I say this in all sincerity, sadly can't play anymore because I live down here. Other guys are up north, and you know, we don't have a place to practice, blah blah blah. Whatever my excuse is, right? But I do live shows, as you were a part of one. And it is more lucrative. But all jokes aside, people think when they pay for a ticket and they're like, dude, this ticket was almost $100. I was like, we don't get paid on all those fees that you get from Ticketmaster.
Oh, dude.
They're not basing any of our cut on any of that.
Anybody that's complaining about how much a t-shirt costs or the sweatshirt costs or the ticket costs, all you gotta do is look at the phone that they're complaining about that on. Because they're not creating the revenue anymore. When the dream was cast in the 70s, let's just go hard rock or rock and roll, into metal, into Sabbath, into that one, whatever. Music made more money than sports, theater, or movies combined annually. And you had to suffer to get it. You had to stand in 98-degree weather at Tower Records to get a ticket. Now people buy tickets to Iron Maiden in 6 seconds on their phone in the smoking section. People have terabytes of certain genres of music. They have multiple lifetimes of music that they download. But they can't even listen to all of it. You know? The revenue created from a full album that somebody spent $12.99 on to have the full album to listen to 3 songs on it that their favorite songs are, when you buckle that down to 99 cents, you've cut off 90% of the revenue. Drumsticks are $12 a pair. And you get $12 for 975 plays of a song if it's streamed. You know, we pay $900 a month rent. You know, airplane tickets to go to Europe are $1,150 to $2,000 a pop.
A pop.
You know, and people look at a show and they go, "Wow, there's 5,000 people in here, and the tickets were $60 a peep, a ticket." And they go, "Wow, they made a killing." No, dude, no. There is a portion of that money that goes to the band. But the crew, the insurance, the production, the visa costs, the carnet costs. People don't know about carnet. Carnet is where you have to list everything you're bringing to a country on tour with you. The drum heads, the drumsticks, the guitar strings, the picks, the guitars, the cabinets, the heads, if you bring that stuff, if you're not just doing backline. Even backline costs. If you're dragging a banner and side scrims, if you're bringing stuff with you, you know, you got to bring drum tech and a road crew guy and you know, you're paying so much money. You know, it costs bands to go on tour starting out just to get on the road. If you're coming from Europe to the United States, can cost upwards of $30,000 to get a whole circus over here to start a tour. You know, and the national average of pay for a band live nationally is $350. That is the average of pay. It spikes at the end when we're talking about the biggest bands in the world. It spikes up. But, you know, people hear, "Oh, you guys got paid $15,000 to play that festival?" Check my $130 fucking Venmo at the end of the tour.
Damn.
You know, at the end of that festival. Because it costs a lot to pull it off. And without the revenue, And without the people buying the music, people, that's why the ticket price is so high. That's why and then t-shirts, 20 to 40% goes to the venue. So Gojira would love to get you that hoodie for $40, but they're going to charge you 80 because they're dropping 30 to 40, 20 to 40%. A lot of the times you go to these venues and you have to count out your t-shirts to people who sell for you.
Yep.
And they charge for that.
Yes, they do.
So, people don't want to talk about all this. A lot of the stuff that's, infected, they don't want to alienate the fan and they don't want to alienate the consumer. But a lot of this stuff is happening because people feel that they just have this $9.99 a month little subscription to something, so they've just got the golden ticket to just take all my shit. Then you got torrents and downloads and people listening to booty MP3s of my music on YouTube, and I didn't do that. Tape trading wasn't like that. Back in the day, tape trading, those were compilations. So you walk up to somebody's car with the door kicked open and you hear Voivod or whatever coming out. You're like, what's that? Oh, that's a new Voivod Roar album. Came out in 1986. Ooh, that's dope. Drove me straight to the record vault or the record exchange. Had to have it.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't getting full pull cassette tapes of bands. I wasn't getting the whole Celtic Frost album. You were hearing Morbid Tales, Procreation of the Wicked, one song. What was that? That's Celtic Frost. Oh, I'm just got to go to the record store. Got to get that. Now, people are like, got their little speaker. What's that? Oh, Celtic Frost. Here's the link. Download it. Or here, it's on Spotify.
And maybe you go back and listen to it, maybe you don't. That's what's so, like, I think it took me 3 hours or so to put together this playlist that I sent you earlier. And I don't know if I told you when I put together, I was like, this is a list of every song I could find on Spotify or every album I could find on Spotify that came out in 86.
Right.
But that was of the metal genre, right? I didn't put any glammy stuff. I didn't put any punk stuff on it. I didn't put any crossover stuff. This is just
Cro-Mags. I think Cro-Mags are on there.
I snuck some stuff on. Brother.
Yeah.
I snuck some stuff on.
Gothic Front.
It was a war with myself. I was like, if you palm mute, okay, right? And I don't know if people dug it and saw it and was like, dude, let me go listen to this, or I want to go to the record store and buy this because this is my favorite album cover of all time. For me, it was the covers. I love record covers and VHS covers, and I love big movie posters. Love it, love concert art. I love all that stuff. And it's not the same.
All we had. All we had was the liner notes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's how I found bands.
Dude, I used to take the speakers and bring them close to my head like big ass headphones, and I'd open up the record and I'd read every little fucking piece of text on there. You know how enamored I was with a Kiss record? When you get down into the corner and it says Kiss plays Pearl drums and Gibson guitars exclusively.
Yeah.
I'd be staring at that, bro, like, and it was the logo of Pearl and the logo of Gibson. Like fonts were a thing back then. Like, dude, how'd they get the real logos on there? Now it's just so easy and just so taken for granted. It's the shattering of mystique is what we're really talking about here. What we're talking about is the shattering of mystique. What did you have? Cream and Hit Parader magazine, written by publicists, what they used to call a cream dream.
Yeah.
Or a Parader puff piece. Right? It's all you got. A bad review of a record you loved in Rolling Stone. Trashing a dope ass album. it's almost a good thing to get trashed by Rolling Stone back in the day because you knew that record was going to blow up.
Did you guys get trashed when you guys dropped the Machine? Did you guys get trashed in Rolling Stone?
Not really. No, we didn't get. Some people were like, "Oh, this is dumbed down." This is dumbed down. A little bit of that, but that was that 94, dude, was the year of Roadrunner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the amount of quality that came out in 94 just on Roadrunner alone is staggering. Hard Rock Germany did a whole thing on 1994. Whole magazine dedicated to it. And it's just crazy, dude. Type O, Sepultura, Machine Head, Doggy Dog, Paradise Lost, 9 Inch Nails. It just goes on and on.
I got to send you the
man.
94 playlist. I'll send you the 94 playlist. I believe on purpose I ended it with Davidian. But before we go, because I know you said you got band practice soon, I do want to ask you, highest high, lowest low, in whichever order you want to answer
that. You mean musically?
Yes. Yeah, I was just sorry. Yeah, musically.
That's intense. That's an intense thing to try to compartmentalize for me. Highest, look, the first time I ever heard my shit on the radio was pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I got smashed in the mouth by Jello Biafra. It was on. See, that's just one of them. But like, we were on Maximum Rock and Roll way back. This is 84. My first band, Homicidal Youth, and Jello Biafra was the guest DJ. And he came on and he said, "That was Hovelet from Hungary. And their band is standing on the cover with orange helmets on and white jumpsuits. And that song was called Who's Gonna Make Some Soda? And now we have a band from Concord, California called Homicidal Youth. That's a stupid name."
Ooh.
And we just were deflated, but our song came on.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh my God. Like that was huge. That was pretty fucking huge. But there's been lots of really great moments, the whole Machine Head going on tour with Slayer and getting the salute from Slayer fans. That was big. We thought we were going to get murdered because we tried to murder bands opening for Slayer back in the day. So, kill, but while you're playing, to get Slayer on stage, so we didn't know how that was going to go, and to have that kind of go over the top was pretty fucking cool. But I will say, dude, and it's probably just back to some newfangled generic shit, but having that Machine Head reunion tour get absolutely buckled and crushed by COVID was a mind fuck on a different level for me. Going back to Machine Head, having that amazing glory moment, having the fans be so pleased, everybody's so happy that we were back doing that reunion. We had only done one leg of Europe, one leg of the States. We had another States leg, another Europe leg, Japan, Korea, China, Russia, Ukraine, New Zealand, South America, Australia. Like, that was going to go on for a long time. And it absolutely got smashed by COVID. That really hit me hard. That was really fucked up. So yeah, that would probably be a low musically, having something like that. Because I think the whole world took it for granted. It's like, I don't want to go out tonight. It's a whole different mindset than I can't go out tonight.
Yeah.
a whole different ball of wax.
And some people we know got really sick. The drummer from Death Angel got very ill when they were coming back from.
Oh, dude, we all caught it. We all got it in New York, February 1st. We made our way to New York. We had 4 days off. We were out there hanging in New York, February 1st. We had our first show back after that was the 5th in Toronto. I actually forgot my passport and forgot we were going to Canada. So I stayed in New York for the full 4 days. Everybody else on day 2 drove up to watch the Super Bowl in Buffalo and then make their way to Canada. I flew to Toronto. I was already feeling sick when I got to Toronto. Very trippy being from Oakland and always being aware of Asians wear masks.
Yeah.
When they're sick.
Yeah.
Got to the Toronto airport. Every single Asian person in the airport had a mask on. And I was like, this is intense. Like, what the heck is going on? Day 6, I was sick as fuck. By the time it was day 9, I was sicker than I'd ever been in my life. 9 of us were sick. Live stream director had to go to the hospital. A few of us went to urgent care. We had doctors coming backstage. I ended up in urgent care. Did a Z-Pack for no reason. By the time we got back to the Fox Theater on February 22nd or 21st, out of 30 people on the tour, 26 of us were sick as fuck. And our tour manager went back to the UK on the 25th, and he was able to get tested and called us and said, yeah, that's what we had. And it was all different varying degrees of sickness. We had crew members that were like, yeah, I feel like I got the sniffles. Let's get back to work. And then some of us were absolutely crippled. Rob was, I don't know how Rob did that tour, the US tour. We only canceled 2 shows on that whole run back after New York. So, I mean, I caught it. I've probably had it 3, maybe 4 times since, you know, and the weird thing was, is like, during that whole time, I started working for a company that sold the blood test, not the PCR test, but the actual blood serum test. And I learned more than I ever thought I would ever know about viruses and how they work and how many mistakes were made and how we absolutely, and no conspiracy vibe, dude, no trippy shit, just the facts from scientists and people who, the company I worked for, the main guy, Iqbal, he invented the dengue fever test. He's been in the business for 52 years. He invented the dual spectrum mono test, the dual spectrum dengue fever test, the dual spectrum malaria test. He doesn't get votes. He doesn't have a contingency. He doesn't have any. He's got his job and he just works virus and testing. And, you know, it was weird being on these Zoom meetings with them and having them 6 weeks before every stage of the pandemic, they were talking about stuff that was going to happen. And then 4 weeks later or 6 weeks later, I'd see it on CNN. And I'd be like, damn, this is weird. Because they were like, they're going to do this, and then this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen. And I was like, wow, what the fuck? You know? So when Will Carroll got sick, you know, he went on ventilator. They had written him off. He was in a coma for 14 days. You know, they had written Will off. The doctors were like, yeah, sorry, we never thought you were coming back.
Damn.
You know, I know a lot of people that got super, super fucking sick, you know, and that fucking PCR test was a major part of it. You know, that PCR test was invented by and mass produced by Homeland Security after 9/11, basically for Guantanamo and all kinds of terrorist identification. And once they had kind of run all their clandestine terrorist testing and apprehension in Guantanamo, they sat on that technology. And then they started leasing it to like 23andMe and all these genealogy websites. You know, find out that Uncle Luigi cut hair in San Francisco in 1906 or whatever, you know, you're related to so-and-so.
Yeah.
And so if you know anybody that's ever taken that test or done one of those genealogy things, most people have to be sent multiple tests. Like, oh, inconclusive results. Here's another one. Take it again. It's because it has a 56% false negative rating. It's an awful test. So a lot of people were sent out into public after doing those PCR tests that were sick as fuck. Because I had all kinds of people telling me while I was selling those tests, people I sold tests to, where it was the blood serum test. You just prick your finger, put the blood in the little cassette, and it shows you what's what. I feel sick as shit. And then they would take my test, and they were full-blown COVID, and they said they had taken the PCR test, and it showed that they didn't have it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it was a really weird shift in my career, being dead in the water musically and being able to do it like that,
Mm-hmm.
to end up through the whole pandemic selling tests. You know, there's like 750 particulate matters in car exhaust that will fail that test. So check us at Dodger Stadium with 15,000, 20,000 cars idling, taking that test outside. You know, made some real mistakes, you know, and the fact that they couldn't give the blood test the gold star was because you need to be a phlebotomist to give this test to the public. You can do it to yourself in the house and prick your own finger and do it like that, but to give this test legitimately in public, you have to be a phlebotomist, and we did that whole testing thing on volunteers.
Mm.
You know?
Well, moving beyond COVID, we're in the quote unquote, you know, you say that word one time,
Yeah.
they pull your stream down.
I hear you. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. They pull my stream down literally every show I do. I'm not even trying to be funny. I have to ask for them to monetize it. They'll demonetize it within about 30 minutes of after it ends. But in the quote unquote post-COVID world, what do you see moving forward? Is it easier? I see less venues. I see it more expensive for the average person to go to a show. I see it harder. It's definitely, as you were talking about earlier, more expensive for smaller bands to even try to tour if you don't have any money behind you. Like serious money behind you. And I'm talking like you said, $350. So if you're a small band, $350 is going to get you to the next city. And I don't care if you got combo amps in the thing or DJ equipment.
Own your van.
Yeah, I don't give a damn what you have. That's not that much money. And you're definitely not. And if no one knows who the hell you are, have fun trying to sell whatever merchandise you have with you. What do you see as the future moving forward? Are you
a tough one.
Or let me put it this way. Are you hopeful, or do you have some hesitance because of the things I mentioned, the expense, the closing of venues? Like, I see people in your bracket, you and Craig and the Forbidden Guys and all the people that you named have cachet in the genre in which you exist in, where, to your point, you're not going to be making $1 million. You're not going to get the airplane, but you will be able to play.
Right.
At best, you can make your money back in a couple of bucks.
Yeah.
But also, everybody's in a different mode in life than they were 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And you can actually have fun
Yeah.
That being said, is it almost impossible for Chris Kontos, if he was starting off now, if you were 16, 18 now, attitude adjustment now,
Right.
can you do what you did then? Can Metallica, I don't think a band like Metallica can have that level of success with no radio, with no
Right.
visual element.
Right.
Do you think these days are over? Do you think things just changed? I don't think it's just change and I'm an old man yelling at clouds. I think there's a massive sea change. There's a reason why a lot of people we see that you hear about come from money or have a parent in the industry.
Oh, dude, the Nepo vibe is in effect. The trust fund baby in the band is massively in effect. I've you know, I get called a gatekeeper a lot because I feel there's too many fucking bands.
Mm-hmm.
Not that people shouldn't be playing, and not that people shouldn't be, you know, getting out there and doing it, but the fact that, like what we were talking about earlier with Ruthie's Inn and stuff about these Monday through Thursday shows,
Mm-hmm.
right? That doesn't happen anymore because clubs can't do it. They can't do all week gigs. It's very rare that you see all week clubs giving out shows to bands. So shows under overpasses, guerrilla shows,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're seeing a lot of that now in the younger genres where they're doing these just pop-up gigs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing it, you know, total DIY. No, DIY.
I saw a show on a BART train. I saw a video of a show on a BART train. That was awesome.
Right. And so I think that it's kind of like it's like an onion.
Mm-hmm.
There's multi-layers to it.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to do it again, but I do blame the customer in a lot of ways for not being aware of how hard it is to actually function in a band. Because at this point, your fucking roommate's probably in a band.
Mm-hmm.
And you should ought to know that drumsticks are $12 a pair. You know? Mm-hmm. You know, there's something not special about a lot of the fucking bands that are out there doing it. There's only so many Fridays and Saturdays in a year. I think a big problem was when garage band, the original term, mm-hmm. which meant 4 guys in a garage that eventually would pop open the garage door and see if a few people dropped their bikes on the driveway and a chick in a tube top would show up and watch. And they'd be like, wow, we're rocking. When that got turned into a genre, that's a problem. Because I'm sorry, but garage bands shouldn't be getting shows yet. They're not there. They're still in the drawing board phase. And I think a lot of bands can just put together 6, 7 songs and open a show on a Saturday night.
Yep. Agreed.
And that's how I end up working at the Baltic, throwing a show with some quality metal bands, and there's 7 other shows in the 30-mile circle happening at the same time. And that's why every club that night got 30 people there. Mm-hmm. And then people want to like try to remember when there'd be 600 people packed into the Berkeley Square or packed into whatever said venue. Mm-hmm. It's because there wasn't so much buffet going on. So, you know, I don't know where you go from there. I don't know how that gets reversed. But like I said, the kind of like everybody can get in and everybody can be in a band and everybody can do this has somehow made it not special. It's kind of, like I said, destroyed the mystique of going to see bands and waiting on a band to show up or waiting for a show to happen. The competition level for young bands right now to stand out is insane. And yeah, I do feel that there will never, ever, ever be anything like what happened here in the Bay Area with thrash metal and crossover. I just don't think that I don't think it's set up to do that. I don't think that the level of confidence from record labels is pushing bands to be that good, to have a higher standard. There's a lot of formula music going on where it's just like, oh, this is this, we play this style. I mean, we took music and like it was a mirror and threw it on the ground and just pick up one sliver and say, this is alternative death metal thrash jazz. Like there's so many genres of everything now.
Yeah.
And then everybody, like, they're all genre allegiant too. Like back in the day, like you said, there was like a lot of diversity between, Fear, Dead Kennedys, who'd you mention? The Germs and Black Flag. That's fucking 4 completely fucking different bands.
Yes.
And nowadays, you would have a show with 5 Dead Kennedy style bands now and 5 Black Flag kind of bands. And if one band stood out, it'd be like, oh, this is off genre, man. I'm not into this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think music is in a tough place. It's in a very delicate place. I'm grateful that I'm part of a historic kind of legendary kind of thing that's getting its just deserves and still has reverence around the world. And, but there's some hangups in the US that are different than there are in Europe. It's glaring. Like Machine Head in 2019 went over on that reunion tour and we played to 98,000 people in 29 days total. Mm-hmm. And then we came home and just a couple months later, we did the US leg and we barely broke 12,000 people.
Damn.
And I think in a lot of ways, music has become an accessory more than a necessity for a lot of people.
Agreed.
And it's not something that people live and die for and breathe and eat and drink and sleep. Their fucking music. And they don't invest in that music the same way. Mm-hmm. And then that's how you end up being the Rolling Stones charging $1,000 face value for the show the other night per ticket. $22,000 front row tickets for the Stones.
Insane. But that's my point. It's I always say, don't look at Fire Festival as an anomaly. Look at it as a testing ground and the future. Right?
Sure.
I want an exclusive experience away from the pores. And we can bring it to the people that have the money for it. And it's going to be a windfall of cash for us.
Right.
Because you don't have to have 30. You don't have to have Coachella is 100. When I was there, it was 122,000 people a day.
Right.
When I was there, and that was right. I think the last year I was physically there was 2017. I know the numbers have tailed off post COVID. I don't know if it's back to that, but still, that's a lot of people. If I can make the same money, you know how much money Bottle Rock makes with a third of that?
Right.
$1 per head?
Right.
It's an exclusive experience for people that have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Nuri Yank, one of the people watching the show, for some reason I can't see the chat lifetime, says, I think Machine Head were bigger amongst metalheads in Europe. They were considered top tier metal in Ireland.
Yeah.
This person said they saw you in Belfast on that reunion tour as well. He said that might have been the last show you guys did.
Wow, and that was that show in Belfast was actually to the day that we played in Belfast on the Slayer tour.
Damn.
I think it was to the day. And that show was dope as fuck.
He said it was a great
Belfast
show.
Belfast is dope as fuck. And it's super cool. And a great place to play, great people, great vibe. Love that place. I love, people are like, what's your favorite place to play? And I'm like, no way I can answer that.
Yeah.
Because I find value in every place I've been. whether it's just a hookup with 2 or 3 people or a great show or a great moment. So it's, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, dude, like, you know, Billy Corgan, you know, kind of early on was starting to do that, you know, no exclusive tickets. First 5 rows are for fans, not fucking people who can get those tickets.
Mm-hmm.
There's been bands that saw this coming, saw this elitist, only for the rich, kind of tide coming. You know, we've been approaching this for quite a while, and we're starting to see it now happening. And it's, you know, it's scary. You know,
it is the reality, and I hate to end on such a grim note because I know, again, I'm trying to watch the clock. I know you said you had to get out because you had to go to band practice.
I got practice at 7, but yeah.
Okay, but I want to say this before we go. I have a show to do at 6. God damn it! I got to turn around and do this shit again.
Turn and burn. I love you for that.
I want to say, and it's about a whole different thing. I want to say this again. I want to say it to you so everybody else can hear that I'm saying this to you. I appreciate all that you've done for me, helping me in every which way, talking to me endlessly. This annoying person in the room in front of you when you were still sharing the room with Glennie, rest in peace. Playing the drums there, the Jeff Hanneman kit. So thank you for taking the time to talk to me. Please tell Craig and the fellas I said what's up.
I will, man.
Tell the missus I said what's up. I wish you guys the best of luck and continued success. I look forward to seeing you play live in Mexico City when you come down here later in the fall.
November 17th, man. Look, dialogue and conversation is all we really, really got. It's one thing we can completely fucking control. These connections, these conversations, your insight, your experience, your life thrust means just as much to me as it does perhaps mine to yours. Okay? So I'm in it for this stuff. Like I'm down to know people, meet people, have these conversations, and I, like you said, that annoying blah blah blah. Like I can't even hear that. Like, you know what I mean? Because it never was for 1 second annoying to have those conversations with you or anything. You know, I'm just wired that way. You know, mom's always told me from a very early age going into the music industry was like, look, fill your heart because you're not going to fill your pockets. Right? So make sure the experience is grandiose and make sure that you value other people and their experience and those shared moments, because that's what we get. That's what we get to take away. Right? And put that back out into the universe.
Well, like I said,
that's not so grim.
That's not so grim. That's not so grim.
We didn't end it grim. Thanks, Mom.
New Rank says, thanks for Burn My Eyes. Amazing album from my youth. So
thank you.
So I'm sure there's a bunch of comments. I haven't seen them. I'm going to go back. I'll send you the link to this show, Chris. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
If you guys are watching this, just stick around, and in 15 minutes, I'll be back with the entire TIR gang, and we'll be talking about what's going on with this current Kamala nomination and everything else. Chris, again, thank you so much. I would love to do this again. I would love to do this in person.
Yeah, right.
I don't know when I'm going to be up in the Bay, but definitely I'm going to see you in Mexico. Maybe I'll bring my traveling rig with me, and we can do an interview with the whole band.
Hey, that would be killer.
And hang out in Mexico City.
Killer. And just looking forward to seeing anybody out there in Europe. You know, Brutal Assault, Bloodstock, playing the headlining show in Manchester, and then we're doing a Dynamo Festival. So looking forward to seeing people out there. You see me walking around in the crowd, don't hesitate to come up and say, what up?
It's going to be awesome if someone says, oh, yeah, I saw your interview on This Is Revolution.
Nice.
I doubt it, but we'll see.
That was hella fun.
Chris, again, thank you so much.
Have a great show, man.
Appreciate you, brother. Have a very good night.
You too, Jason.
Peace out.
Peace.
That was Chris Kontos of Too Many Bands to Name. Currently, he's in Forbidden. Honored to call him a friend. Very, very helpful in doing stuff, and I think he even played a show in a Le Fen t-shirt, which was huge, you know. But that being said, I'm going to shut my mouth. I'm going to go use the bathroom so I can come back here for another whole bunch of hours, because we're also going to do a champagne room as well. So if you enjoyed what you heard, there's going to be more music shows, more stuff in general. I'll have another announcement to make on the main show. Please stay around for that. If you like what you hear and you want to hear more of this, definitely hit the subscribe button. If you want to make sure we can keep the lights on, become a patron for as little as $3 a month or $30 for the year. You're going to have access to the champagne rooms, past and present. Join us for movie night. So on that note, and also I need to send a massive shout out. Because of the technical problems we were having, I wasn't able to work the chat. I asked Tucson if she can help me because I was afraid people would have questions for Chris. So thank you, Tucson. And she will be joining me again. So, and you'll be able to hear her this time. She was quiet, and I don't even want to ask her to speak right now. I'm sure there's sirens and whatever other insane sounds of New York. Look, let me shut up so I can go use the bathroom, refill my water, come back. Pascal, Cuba, possible. Ah!
Sorry.
You just internet scared me.
I'm so sorry.
I looked down.
Hello.
And I was like, what?
You're welcome.
Turned into black Don Knotts for 1 second. But Tucson and I will be back with Cuba, Pascal. Varn is joining us to bitch about this. I promise I will be a lot less talkative. So Tucson, real quick before we go, you know nothing about this music. What did you think of that?
It was a very cool show.
We had audio problems for a half hour.
Yikes.
And I was like, you know what? I can call you. So it worked.
You've always got the solutions at the last minute.
That's the punk rock. Duct tape. You know, this guitar behind me, because of the way it's made, someone made that for me. From Louisiana. And wow. All my other guitars are duct taped. The strap is it's strap locked and duct taped because I was such a violent player. So duct tape gets everything done in this world as well. So
I see.
Are you ready for this Kamala show? I just got an alert. Okay, so you guys stay tuned to the TIR channel. We'll be back. We'll laugh it up with Cuba, Pascal, Varn. I don't know if Bajlan's joining us. He might. He said he might because they have the whole Central Committee with the Secretary of State, M. Toussaint. Is always a pleasure. M. Toussaint, the Hillary Clinton of TIR.
Oh, what about that?
M. Toussaint, the Kissinger of TIR. Yeah, it's better. So thank you guys, and I'll see you in a little bit.
Back when Russia was the Union of Soviet Social Republics, and they'd say, "Oh, but aren't you so glad that you're in America?" I said, "Well, I know a lot of Russian filmmakers, and they have a lot more freedom than I have. All they have to do is be careful about criticizing the government."